60 Minutes with Angela starts right now.
My guest today is a man of many parts. When he does anything, he strives for perfection. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and one of Nigeria's leading commercial lawyers. He's the editor-in-chief and publisher of Nigerian oil and gas cases. An accomplished poet and playwright, he is the author and creative producer of the award-winning KAKADU, the musical, which has toured Nigeria and South Africa. He's also the creator and producer of the successful legal TV drama series EVE, Audio Ultram Partem. Uche Nwokedi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joins me on the program today. Much for joining me on the program today.
Thank you very much for having me here.
All right, so I've researched you, read your book, and been following you over the years. You seem to strive for perfection, and I'll tell you what I mean. Every sector that you've delved into, be it law, be it the creative arts, poetry, stage plays, you've been able to achieve all those things at the highest level. What pushes you? I mean, is there a correlation between law, for instance, and the creative arts?
Oh yeah, I think there is. I think law, to a certain extent, is almost like a creative art itself.
Yes.
At times, people wonder what's a lawyer doing in the arts, but then law is an art. It's all about language. It's all about presentations. To a certain extent, there's drama in law. So I don't see that is exclusive, that once you're a lawyer, you can't do anything else.
And probably that's why we find lawyers in all fields.
Yeah.
Of endeavor.
Because law has a lot of versatility to it. It opens up your mind. It allows you to learn different things. And depending on the cases you do, with each case,
yes,
you acquire the experience of that industry. You become knowledgeable in that field, even if it's for just the purposes of the case.
Okay. All right, so I read your book, and that's the book here. It's called A Shred of Fear, a memoir. Just reading through what some, other writers like yourself have said. Sefiata calls it an inspiring book that is sure to mend bridges. Chief Atom Banefo says, it is a must-read, written with such brilliant simplicity. One is taken on a journey of the changes in life in a time of war. And Yinka Olatunji also describes it as rich in style and language and full of humor. This writing is an emotionally wrenching crossover read. That's from Yinka Olatunji. So talk to me about the prose and the literary style, because I see a lot of alliteration, for instance, and a lot of humor. But this is the story from you as a 7-year-old. How did this book come to be? Where were those memories buried from when you were age 7?
I've been asked that question many times. But it's all about, to a certain extent, it's about trauma. War is a traumatic experience. And if you go through trauma, you'll always remember. If you had to pack up in the middle of the night and run from your home, just run into the night because people are coming to get you, you'll never forget it. You know, so that's part of the memories that are being recounted. And also, there's a certain element of it that speaks to the futility of war. War never solves problems. If anything, it creates a different set of problems.
Yes.
You know, and that's my own you know, like, this book is my personal view. People may have their own views. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to a view.
Yes.
But it's my own personal experience and it's my personal account of the war.
Personal account of the war. All right, let's look at the title. The title of the book is Shred of Fear. It's taken from the last two lines of the stanza of the Biafra National Anthem. That anthem was composed by Nnamdi Azikiwe.
Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, yes.
And the actual sentence is, but if the price is death for all we hold dear, then let us die without a shred of fear. End of quote. What does that mean?
That's an interesting one. I think basically it means that everybody in life must stand up and be counted for what they believe in. If you believe in something and you stand by that belief, is what your principles, the principles you stand by, that define who you are. And rather than giving to the subjugation of those principles, maybe it's better you were dead. Because the minute you lose what you've been built on, your faith, your upbringing, who you are, then is there any point living? So if the price is death for all we hold dear,
Yes.
then let us die without a shred of fear. Let us die defending our principles. I think that's what it means.
I want you to cast your mind back now to 1990, your visit to Monrovia with your then friend and client, Lighton Adesoya.
Yeah.
You know, because earlier on you alluded to how you never forget when you have to leave your home in the middle of the night and run into the dark without knowing where you're going.
Yeah.
You said something about that trip, the environment, the atmosphere in Monrovia that day scared you and reminded you of the time you went back home during the war. So what was it about that atmosphere that triggered you on that trip?
It was a feeling in the air. It's
what
not
feeling that
it's not something that you can
is going to happen.
Yes, it's just a feeling that all is not well. And the way it was, even the people in the town seemed to be drifting.
When you say drifting, moving out of town.
Not moving out of town, they too were unsure of themselves, they were unsure of the environment. And Monrovia, that was really quite a friendly town, became a bit hostile. In the sense that going out at night, there were checkpoints all over the place. That friendliness we experienced previously on our previous trips was no longer there. And there was an emptiness. It was like the soul of the city had flown away, you know, and people were expecting something to happen. What it was, I don't know. But it was very much the same feeling we used to have in Aba with all the air raids, because you didn't know when the next air raid was going to be. You didn't know when you might have to run. You didn't know.
What is an air raid for those who have never lived through war? Describe an air raid for us.
An air raid is like you and I sitting here and all of a sudden planes fly in and they're bombing all over the place. That's an air raid. So you might be here. If you're unfortunate, the bomb might land smack on this house. Or you might see the house next door.
Yes. Obliterated.
Obliterated by a bomb. That's it. That's an air raid.
Does it come with warnings? Was there normally an alarm that...
In Aba, there was supposed to be an alarm system. It didn't always work.
Yes.
So there was a suddenness about it. You know, it was like, you know, they would swoop in on you. We could be outside playing, and next thing you just hear the planes and bombs exploding and everybody scampering and diving for cover. And that's it basically.
So this dramatic introduction you had to the Biafran War, you were barely 7 years old.
Yeah.
I'm taking you back now to your primary school days.
Yeah.
Santa Maria Catholic Primary School. Oluchukwu, your friend.
Yeah.
Are you still in contact with him?
I never saw him after the war.
Never. And that's
saw
a story you repeat a lot in the book, how
we
some
never
people,
yes.
that's it. You never.
Yeah, that's it.
Cousins,
family members that passed on because of the war. Friends that some people moved away and never came back to that spot. That's war.
When you hear fellow Nigerians today, people saying if we go our separate ways, if we're going to fight war, people seem to belittle war and the vagaries of war.
They underestimate it.
Yes.
If you look at wars across the world, when America went to Vietnam, Vietnam followed them home. The PTSD for soldiers, drug-related problems, all kinds of issues from Vietnam follow them back to America. So war is not something that you fight, and after that, the dust clears.
Everybody goes home.
And everybody goes home. No. It leaves some lasting damage that for generations you'll keep, feeling it.
Can war be justified under any circumstances as far as you are concerned?
I don't know if it can be. I suppose for some people, they can always find justification for war. But I would always say, if there's room for dialogue.
We'll come to the subject of your book later on in this. I want to take you back now to your foray into creative arts and stage plays. I remember you in Jesus Christ Superstar, then as a student of St. Gregory's College. I still remember all the songs. Am I right in thinking that perhaps this career you have in the creative arts came
Is it a career?
It is. I mean, you've produced KAKADU the musical, you're a playwright.
I don't make money from it.
But it's a passion. That's the thing about the creative arts. You've produced and created a legal series that was run, successful legal series run on television. So quite a successful career, as I said, both in law and the creative arts. But something in your book triggered me to think that perhaps all this creative thing started way back when you were in school. Your mom prepping you all for the Festival of Arts organized by the nuns at that time in Santa Maria, and your older sisters, Chinelo, Thelma, and Obi Phyllis, rehearsing, and your mom making costumes. Could that have been the foundation for all this?
Yes, I think both my mom and my dad were quite literary. They made us read a lot of books. My mom especially was into the arts in her own way. She was a dressmaker, apart from being a teacher. And she encouraged us. Poetry, things like that. So, yes, that could have been the foundation of what is happening today. But then again, at Greg's, we had a strong arts-inclined curriculum. I mean, it was at Greg's, it wasn't at sets that Ofege came out.
Yes.
We were the first school to run operettas and operas. Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Jesus Christ Superstar, was active in both. So I think what you learned from school, the discipline, and production. I mean, at Greg's, we produced Jesus Christ Superstar ourselves, supervised by Father Cornell. But you see, it's that discipline that makes you understand the work that you have to do and how you have to get it to the end,
Yes. Yeah. And your story intrigues me more because you have two experiences of running, right, as a result of war. So your dad's side, running away from Lagos and from Western Nigeria, and then your mom's side, running away from the north, and all of you converging on the southeast. So, tell us about that. The whole family converging, your Uncle Alex also running from Lagos, and he being married to a Southwest woman, Auntie Kofo. So, how did the family navigate all that?
It's a very interesting thing you ask, to be honest with you, because it just shows you that people from the Southeast are people that are very adventurous. So you're most likely going to find people from the Southeast in all parts of the country. And that was very evident when the war broke out, because people ran back from all over the place. Different experiences, but people ran back. Uncle Alex and Kofo was particularly interesting because after a while, she took him into Biafra.
How did she live? How did she navigate in time of war from Lagos to the southeast?
That's very interesting, because what I understand is that, she found her way to Benin through some diplomats that were Uncle Alex's friends. And from Benin, one of Uncle Alex's classmates from Greg's got her to Asaba and put her in a canoe and got her across to Onitsha. And she made her way from there. So it was quite courageous what she did. Because she was basically, as it were, going into enemy territory to look for her husband.
And this was not a time when there were phones. So did
the husband
know she was coming?
He didn't know. In fact, it was actually my father that went to pick her up from Onitsha. But she lived in Biafra throughout, undisturbed.
And they were already married?
They were already married, In fact, they had their first child in Ekulobia, where eventually my father was headquartered as the administrator of the Oka province. So, and I think that she wasn't the only Yoruba person that was living in Biafra. There are a lot of Yorubas that were married to Igbos, and some decided to stay with their families, and they were unharmed. Nobody molested or troubled them. You know what I mean? So it was like a funny kind of war, where there's a war going on, but personal relationships were not always affected. And people tried as much as possible to preserve the personal relationships they had across the tribes.
Join us again after the break. Welcome back. So let's talk about legal details in your book now that let us know how much war affects people's lives. And I've got some examples. Treating asthma, palm oil on spoon with a bit of salt. I've never heard that. But in the heat of war, you have to find ways when there's no Ventolin available, I suppose.
Well, I think it was more of an, how do I put it? My grandmother's recipe for dealing with coughs. And she didn't really appreciate asthma. She just thought it was just another type of cough, persistent cough and all that, you know what I mean? So she had this thing of put some palm oil in a spoon, put some salt in it, and then stir it and make you drink it. It will soothe you for a while, but then the cough won't go away. You know what I mean? So,
it's an asthmatic cough.
Yeah.
So. And the second example you gave was your sister, Obi, while running at night, escaping her. She just had surgery, and her stitches tore open. I think you were evacuating Enugu Agidi Hospital.
Enugu Agidi, yes.
In the middle of the night.
She had done the surgery there because Aba was considered a bit dangerous with all the bombings. Yeah, so that was the experience that she had.
And you say there's nothing better than waking up in hospital and seeing your mom and dad at your bedside. This is after your bad asthma attack in Umuchu. Umuchu is where your grandmother lived.
Umuchu was a town we ran, a village we ran to.
Yes.
My grandmother lived in Ogidi, but eventually she tried to live to Ogidi.
Yes.
Umuchu was somewhere we ran to when we left Aba.
Umuchu was where you ran to. Okay, the war came to Aba.
The war came to Aba. Aba fell to the federal troops.
Right.
And we took off. We ran. First to Uga, stayed a very short time in Uga, then finally found a home in Umuchu.
When you say you ran, I know people whose families ran, but they were separated. Were you all together?
Yes, we were. We all took off. We're fortunate in that sense, because yes, you're right, some people were separated. But we're fortunate in that sense, we all took off.
And arrived in Umuchu together.
Yes.
As a family. All right. So now we come to things that a person thinks of but can't speak out loud. Your comments on page 56 of the book, you said you thought about what if Mama died? What if Papa didn't return? I'm thinking of a 7-year-old child now. What would happen if Mama died when the refugee camp was bombed while she was there? What if Papa was captured at the war front or shot down during one of his missions abroad? I thought of many things, but could not speak them out loud. That's deep for a 7-year-old.
Well, you have your fears as a child, because you see all around you. There are times we would visit the refugee camps, and you see children that have been orphaned by the war, fending for themselves, and you're looking at them and wondering, wow, can I survive this? And then there's a lot of education at home, as it were.
Yes.
My mother would tell us, in case I don't come back or in case anything happens to me, this is what you do. This is where you go. This is who you go to. This is where you try to get to.
So those kind of conversations were happening?
You had to. Because if you're living in a period of uncertainty and there's war and people are dying around you, and right before your eyes you see refugees coming back from the north, parents have been killed, just children, where it might be a family of 4 kids. The oldest might be about 12, and he's become their mother and father at the same time. It's a life issue. It leaves something in your mind.
Just trying to imagine you at 7, thinking about your parents not returning.
These are things you're faced with, realities of life, even at that young age.
The air raid you wrote about, I think this is page 80 now, Pound Road Extension.
Yeah, the
with
Pound
many
Road bombing.
bookshops and record stores. You call it a close call for your family. Your sisters, Obi and Chinelo, could have actually been with your cousins, Chuma, Ifoma, and Uche.
Yeah.
They were meeting, your aunt seeing, your meeting with your aunt in 2017 at Chief Ajetunmobi's residence. You detailed that very clearly in the book, and you said, for a long time, we were too scared to mention our cousins' names.
Yeah.
We stayed away from Margaret Avenue. One of them's body was never found. We had encountered death. It was personal and ugly and bitter and final. That's the literary style I'm talking about. The use of the word "and" there, emphasizing that. But you also went on to say that as your aunt began to recount her memories of those awful events, you too walked through that door to the past that she had opened, if only for a short while. You also say she was speaking to herself. Take us through that, because it was obvious that you woke something.
It's not an easy thing to describe. It's not an easy thing to describe when a woman recounts how she lost 3 of her kids in one day in an air raid. And she's recounting 50 years plus later, and her memory is very clear. And she's giving details of what she was doing
At that time.
at that time. You know, and then, you know, it brought back a lot. In fact, after I saw her for a couple of days, I wasn't myself. Because I was just thinking to myself that, you know, you feel guilty.
Yes.
I felt guilty in the sense that I said to myself, I hadn't looked for her all these years. I didn't even ask after her. Now, was it that we just, after the war, everybody just moved on with their lives and the tragedies remain with the people who
I think
remain?
many people don't like to confront the tragedy or the inevitability of death. So you avoid
these reminders, yeah. You know.
So your father was a colonel in the Biafran army, Colonel Uche Nwokedi. That didn't interest me. What interested me was the way your mother handled and dismissed the attempted commandeering of her car at this checkpoint. You were going back from Umuchu to Akokwa. I mean, that was gangster. Did you remember? That was gangster.
No,
the wife of a colonel.
My mom was just a tough one.
Yes.
She's just somebody that couldn't be intimidated by anyone or anything. And she was basically somebody, and I think most women her generation, most mothers her generation were like that. She'll take you on, you know, without batting an eyelid.
Yes.
No fear. So that was it.
No one was taking her car.
No one was taking her car off her. Nobody.
Your relationship with your relationships with your sisters, you say Obi did not hesitate to report me even for looking as if I was thinking of doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and in that place, that's I think page 130, you talked about how your mother had a pecking order of discipline.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
The way it works in our house is that Obi didn't give trouble, so between herself and children, no issues.
And they were the eldest.
They were yeah. But my mom put her in charge of me, and I was in charge of my younger brother, Ifeanyi. And the whole idea was that if Ifeanyi did anything wrong, I got into trouble. Because it meant that he would have either seen me doing it, or I stood by and let him do it. Likewise for Obi. So if he did anything wrong, she got into trouble first. I mean, I'd be in trouble,
Yes.
but she also got into trouble because my mom would say, where were you when he was doing it? And how come you did not stop him? For that reason, she discharged her duty with zeal. And she was always, I was always, I think I was a bit rascally, so she always got into trouble because of me.
And she was a good conquer, you know, and you know, for those who are watching this, conk is spelled C-O-N-K. Yes, so as best as you can, graphically describe to non-Nigerians who will be watching it what a conk is. Because your mom was a conquer.
Yeah, oh,
but
definitely.
Obi was an even better conquer.
Well, conk is what her Greg used to call crack. And it's basically using your knuckles to knock somebody on the head. And my mom did that a lot as if to make the object of what she was telling you
Yes.
to drive it home. So she will knock you on the
Knock
head.
it into your head.
You know?
So, that word conk appears so many times in the book. It takes you back,
Yeah.
you know, to your
That's the good old days.
Yes,
When, you know, at home, discipline was discipline.
yes.
Today, discipline means something else. If you discipline now, it might become child abuse.
Did you ever conk your children?
No. I took my father's approach of not conking or anything like that. My father will talk to you and that's it. And incidentally, Winifred would cane if I had to stop her from caning the kids. Just like my mother would, you know, so.
Yes. You didn't believe in physical punishment.
No, I think at the end of the day, my attitude is that boys will be boys.
Yes.
If they get up to all sorts, so be it. But you make them understand when they're doing something wrong. You know what I mean?
Yes. Don't you find that though that somehow Children know when they're doing.
Oh, they know, they
bad.
try you. They try you. Oh, they try you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Children are, to a certain extent, they can be manipulative. They try to see what they can get away with. They play on your emotions and they keep watching you.
Yes.
You know, so you have to be you have to be alive to all those tricks.
Yes.
Yeah.
With them. Did you ever find out though why Mama never bought you all that fried chicken? That akara place where she bought akara for you, the roadside market.
Yes.
In BD town, your maternal grandmother's home.
Yeah.
Who you call Big Mommy. They were selling akara and fried chicken. Why did she never buy that chicken?
I never understood it. I never understood it. At some point, I thought maybe it's a way of controlling us. Like you can't have everything you want.
Yes.
So you want chicken and akara, I'll give you akara. Are you with me?
Yes.
Period. That's all you're going to get.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. You're not getting any chicken.
And is that chicken you all really?
It's the chicken we wanted, but we never got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At one point, we joked that maybe she thought might have been vultures that were fried and kept
Not real chicken.
Not real chicken. But I knew it was our own way of controlling us. And all you're going to get is what I'm going to give you, and that's akara. So make do with that.
It's what your mama gives you.
That's it.
Oh God. All right. So years later, after the war, you run into your classmate from Santa Maria, Tunji Fada.
Tunji Fada
You
area.
met him in the 80s at YMCA.
Yeah,
You still do karate?
Now off and on. Off and on, yeah.
You were really into karate at that
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
And you said Tunji is about the only person I knew in Santa Maria before the war, other than my cousins
Yeah.
whom I ran into after the war.
Yeah.
Are you still friends with him?
I've lost touch with Tunji over 10 years now. But there's a time in the 80s where we hung out together, trained together. We were always at the karate dojo at the YMCA in Ikoyi. And after a while, I don't know whether he moved to America or something like that.
Yes.
I lost contact
But
with
it's
him.
instructive for me that a Yoruba person was your classmate in Santa Maria Primary School in the Southeast.
Why?
I mean, if we go by what
Forget
just
what they say in
happened-
Nigeria today. Everywhere they had, in Aba, there are some magistrates that were Yorubas. Yes. I remember running into Justice Candide Johnson
Yes.
when we were at law school. I went over to their house. Yemi is my friend, the son. And when I was introduced to him, he told me that, your dad was my friend. I lived in Aba. I was a magistrate in Aba. That's how Nigeria was. So you have to ask yourself,
Yes.
which is a question I ask in the book, where are we now?
Just going back to your auntie Kufu now, married to your uncle. When she came to the Southeast, was she free? Was she moving around?
Yeah, she was. She
going
would go to the market. Yeah, she would go to the market. She was free. Nobody bothered her.
Could she speak Igbo?
I know she understands Igbo very well. I don't know if she ever spoke, but she understands it very well.
Did the people know she was not Igbo?
They knew she was Yoruba. Nobody bothered her. Nobody cared.
I'm just trying to imagine a time when these things were possible.
I think despite the war, Nigeria was a lot more civilized then than it is now.
Yes.
Nigeria was actually a lot more civilized than what we find today.
Well, your father was also Secretary General of the Socialist Workers and Farmers Party of
Yeah.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
Why do you laugh when I say that?
He was an activist. That's what he was.
Right. Okay, so he studied law.
He studied law, but even before studying law,
Yes.
he was already an activist. He was a Zikist. He was a young Zikist. He joined up with Tunji Otegbe and co for the Socialist Workers and Farmers Party. They were just activists,
You remember this quote? It is not our intention to play the aggressor. Nonetheless, it is not our intention to be slaughtered in our beds. Fellow countrymen and women, On Aburi we stand, end of quote. You said in your book that the story was that Gowon did not fully comprehend what he had agreed to. Why do you say that?
It's not me, I'm recounting what we were told. On Aburi we stand was a very popular mantra in Biafra. And it was on the basis upon which the southeast or the eastern region broke away. Because basically, my understanding as a child was that certain agreements were reached between Gowon and Ojukwu.
Yes.
In Aburi and Ghana. But when Gowon came back to Nigeria, he decided not to keep to the agreements. That was our understanding as children.
Okay.
The details at the time were not clear to us. But then we liked the saying, on Aburi we stand.
Yes.
So we used it anyhow. You get into an argument with somebody, it was a catch-all phrase, just say, oh boy, on Aburi we stand. You know what I mean? So what it actually meant
Yes.
might not have been the way we applied it, but we used it anyway. It sounded good.
Join us again after the break. Welcome back. Now, you said that this restructuring of Nigeria started at independence. Now, in your book, you said the false flags flutter and the kites are flying high, but they do so in limbo. In truth, however, the restructuring of Nigeria started at independence in 1960. We have gone from protectorate to independent nation to republic. We have also gone from a parliamentary system of 3 regions to an American-style presidential system with 36 states. In a sense, all it has done is dredge up the worst in us. It has brought ethnic and religious differences to the fore. Expand on that, especially in the light of the recently conducted 2023 presidential elections here in Nigeria and the fractious relationships that have evolved as a result of that election. People say ethnic divisions have never been
It's never been
so
like
pronounced
this.
as now.
It's never been so pronounced. It's sad, actually. It's sad because even on some of our class groups, WhatsApp groups,
Yes.
there are all kinds of fights going on. And at some points, I made a point to some people. I said, we may have come from different parts of the country, but the minute we walked through the gates of St. Gregory's College, we became brothers. And I don't think that having been friends for the last 40, 50 years, we should throw away our friendship because of politics.
Yes.
You know, I think politics in a sense, because it's winner takes all, has dredged up some of the worst people and some of the worst behaviors from us. And we're all guilty. I don't think anybody is innocent, we're all guilty.
Of fueling stereotypes.
Yes, I think we're all guilty. It's sad because when you talk about democracy, you assume that it's one man, one vote.
Yes.
And everybody's entitled to express his opinion. And that is what should make us grow as a country. But it isn't so, as this last election showed in particular. And it's a recurrent thing that we see from the pogroms of the 60s, where certain tribes were targeted through hostilities over the years based on ethnic divisions. But then you ask yourself that, what is it that we're really fighting for? What is it? Everybody wants some control, some power, so that they can make money from governments. That's the bottom line.
Yes. And they're not making money for the general public.
No, they are not. They are not. They're not doing it. I haven't seen any government yet in Nigeria that cares for the people.
Altruistically.
Whether you call it altruistically, as a matter of mandate, policy, nothing. Our politicians are still flying abroad for treatments every day, each successive government. There is nobody. You know, when we were younger, when I was at Greg's, if you were ill, you went to General Hospital, Lagos, and you got treated. Now, anybody that has money in Nigeria, he's ill, he's on the plane abroad. London, America, Germany, South Africa. What are we doing about hospitals? With the millions and millions of dollars we've made over the years, Nigeria should be a hub for medical care in West Africa. The kind of doctors we have, the kind of brains, the number of Nigerians, someone like Onyeshuku that went to Greg's is one of the top surgeons in America. Bolo Onyeshuku is one of the top 3. There are many doctors. I have cousins that are doctors in America. If half of them were encouraged to come back and the facilities were there for them, trust me, people will be flying into Nigeria for medical care. Same way people are flying to Dubai and India. What's the difference? But nobody cares because they can afford to go abroad. That's the Nigeria we live in today.
Well, on a lighter note, I have 2 interesting stories from your book. First one was your mother saying to you, Uche, procrastination is the thief of time. What was the context behind that statement?
I never did anything on time. That's it basically. I never did my homework on time.
Yes.
My household chores, I'll delay, and then I'll be looking for excuses. As she would say, procrastinating. Another thing she used to say was, make hay while the sun shines. Yes. Make use of your... So she always drummed that into my head. Procrastination is the thief of time.
And then the second one that I keep imagining and I play over and over in my head, because the way you explain that, page 116, you say, your sisters, I was easily impressed by them, as well as by the Latin conjugations that Chinelo and Obi recited at home when they practiced their Latin. It made me want to go to secondary school, where it seemed you immediately became smart.
Yeah, because they didn't know these things before they went to secondary school now. Then they go one time in secondary school, they are coming back with Latin.
The vicissitudes. I can't get over that. Vicissitudes.
Of a sublunary existence. Such is life, yeah.
They use Latin to dominate you in the house. But on a final note now, the last sentence in the book, you say, Nigeria is storm-tossed, constantly buffeted by the vagaries of our bumpy journey to nationhood. Always we are reminded that, quote, Nigeria is a vessel in expedition. Where we go, we do not know, end of quote. What do you mean by that?
A lot. You see, if you think of Nigeria as a vessel sailing the seas, we're always in one storm or the other, one wahala or the other. There are always problems. If we're not dealing with armed robbery, we're dealing with kidnapping, we're dealing with universities on strike, we're dealing with politicians not doing their work, we're dealing with our professionals too, yes. Collaborating with all this. And then we're dealing with the issue of restructuring. I keep asking people, I ask this question all the time. What do you understand restructuring to be?
Different answers.
Different answers. So from jump starts, from the creation of Nigeria, it seems like we've never really gotten it right. And it seems that we're just exploring. Let's try this. Okay, let's try that. People will come and say, I asked one of my associates in the office the other day, what do you understand restructuring to be? He said, first, we have to change the constitution, amend the constitution. I said, what has the constitution got to do with our behavior? No matter the constitution you give us, yes. No matter what you write, whether the constitution was written by the military, whether it's written by us, people that do not intend to be governed or to abide by the provisions of the constitution will abuse it. Yes. It's a behavioral issue. And then when it happens, people will turn around and say, oh, he doesn't like me because I'm an Igbo man. He doesn't like me because I'm a Yoruba man. Oh, these people are so clannish. They will find reasons and they'll justify it.
Yes.
So, in terms of Nigeria, where are we actually going? When we talk about democracy in Nigeria, I'd like to ask the question, has a democracy been successful?
Well, America says the fact that we're continuing on this democratic journey is a good thing.
It's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, it's a good thing.
Yes.
And I like the fact that everybody has gone to court. It means, but the underlying factor there for me is not necessarily because our democracy is being successful. Is that Nigerians are basically law-abiding people and they want peace. There's a lot that happens in Nigeria that in other countries, the country will burn. But Nigerians are basically peace-loving people. You know, and whether you're Christian, a Muslim, an atheist, everybody prays. We're a prayerful nation, let me put it that way.
Yes.
And because of that, we want peace. So when people step back from a full-on fight or, you know, it's because they actually, at the end of the day, you know what? Let me have peace.
Yes.
Let me go about my business peacefully. You have people that travel 2-3 hours to get to work and travel 3 hours home, and they are ready to do it every day, provided they get pay at the end of the week or at the end of the month. If that isn't peaceful, and they did it during the military, they do it during civilians. So it's not, for me, it's not that our democracy is getting better. No, it's just who we are. At the end of the day, we're peace-loving people.
Would you ever support or, you know, any group that wants to go it alone? You know, like we've seen with the Oduduwa Nation, you know, Biafra, Arewa, you know, we have all these agitations going on in different regions of the country.
So my own fear is that once you start, you'll splinter into little pieces.
Will that help?
I don't know. I don't think it will help. I think it's better we stay together. I think it's better we stay together and we sort out our problems. And if it's to give autonomy to different regions or different places, fine, let's do that. And since we've been trying all kinds,
yes,
let's try a little bit more autonomy to the constituent states.
Regions.
Yeah, let's see what they can do.
Some people are advocating a return to the 1960
The regions.
Constitution. Yes.
It'll never work. It'll never work. Listen, let's take the Southeast, for instance. You have 5 states that have been created out of the Southeast.
Yes.
You have 5 state capitals. So all of a sudden, you tell them that everybody go back to Enugu.
To be the base.
To be the base. Then you have 5 ministries, civil service ministries in the Southeast. So now it will become 1. How's it going to work?
So 4 governors will be out of work.
4 governors will be out of work. 4 commissioners of health, of education, everybody will be out of
4
work.
speakers. Of
4
their
speakers.
Houses of Assembly.
Don't talk about the cars they will lose
And the perks.
and the perks.
Yes.
You know, so what does that say? You know? And I think part of the problem also is economic viability and opportunity.
Also,
Okay, let's take, for instance, the unrest across the country has killed a lot of the economies of these states. In the north, farmers are scared to go to the farms. Same thing in the east. When I started practice at Rotimi Williams in the 80s, late 80s, I would drive myself to Benin to go and do a case. I would drive to Ogwashuku. I'd even drive to Port Harcourt in my car. You can't try that now. To go by road, you'll be so scared. You know, the risk of traveling by road in Nigeria is too much. The country has changed.
yes.
And all that comes down to an issue of good governance at the end of the day. How did we get to this point? I keep asking them, how? And when did it happen? Because, I mean, I've been practicing law for almost 40 years now. The changes that I see now was not how it was when I started across the country. You know, so how did we get to this point and when? When did it start? Why wasn't something done to arrest it in time? Those are the questions I keep asking myself.
Would you ever consider public office?
I don't see why not. I've had a little stint of it. Public service. I was chairman of the Karate Federation at one time. I think if you're called and you feel you can do something, you should try it. So I'd never say, no, I won't try it, no. But I don't know if I have the stamina for it. It's left to be seen, you know what I mean? It takes a lot of distraction for you to get your work done. You know, and if you're used to working where you control everything around you and you set your pace,
yes, and
your parameters,
yes.
and you know when you're doing right or when you're doing wrong. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a different kettle of fish that we're looking at public service.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
For speaking with me today, your busy schedule, taking out time to spend an hour with me.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for watching. I'm Angela Ajetunmobi.